It says something didn't go as planned. No need to worry, I'm doing changes, please keep your computer on.
Good luck. I hope it works out.
Oh my gosh.
Sign-in sheet? Okay. A regular meeting of the Delta County Commissioners is being held this date pursuant to the following call. In a letter to the Commissioners dated March 6, 2025, and reading as follows. The Honorable Members of the Delta County Board of Commissioners, dear Commissioners, a regular meeting of the Delta County Board of Commissioners is scheduled for Tuesday, March 11th, 2025 at 8 a.m. in the conference room at the Delta County Service Center. Sincerely yours, Nancy Prozraki, Delta County Clerk. Please rise for a word of prayer. Lord, as we begin this meeting, we are thankful for our many blessings. We ask for our guidance to help our commissioners make decisions in the best interest of the citizens of our county. And Lord, we pray for the safety of our military men and women. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Commissioner Milner.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Williams.
Here.
Commissioner Van Genhoven.
Here.
And Commissioner Jensen.
Here. Okay. We will get going here. Approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. There was nothing attached yet.
Too many motions in that meeting.
So we will move down to number 6. We need approval of the agenda.
Move approval of the agenda as it stands.
I'll support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Number 7, presentation of written communications received and forwarded.
There are none.
There are none. 8, reports of standing statutory special committees and others. There was none. Public comments on an agenda item. Is there any public comments on agenda items?
And I don't have any remote public comment either.
Okay. Move on to number 10, committee reports, administrator report.
There is not one, there'll be
There
one
is
other, our
none?
next meeting.
Okay. Number 2, IT committee minutes from 3/4/25. That's,
So we met on March 4th and had some new business on our agenda. We dealt with some old business. We are in the process of developing an AI policy for the county. And we were presented with a sort of a template to start with, and we're working toward getting that in place. We also added new business based on some information that came forward from this board. That was streaming county board meetings, and so IT has been instructed to find hardware solutions and bring them to our next meeting to have a discussion. We talked about making sure that policies are available online for employees to have access to, so we're working toward that. We also updated our rules of procedure online, so the new version is, well, the updated version, not the new version, but the updated version is on the website now. And then we talked also about board packets, streamlining that process, and so we're working on a plan on brainstorming ideas around that. We also talked about the 5-year rec plan, the public survey that's coming out. We will finalize that at the Parks Commission meeting on this Thursday, and so it would be available after that, and we'll make sure that we get it posted on our county website as well as around the county. And then we talked about the data center and identifying and documenting the data center's location and the fact that there are water pipes that actually run within the data center, which is a liability to the county. And so we are working with IT to develop a plan for whether we leave the data center where it is and reroute water pipes, or if we move the data center, or if the county just accepts the liability and we document that liability and know what to expect if we have an emergency. So those are the things that we worked on.
Can I get a motion to put the IT report on file?
So moved. I'll support.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passed. The Building Grounds Committee, there is no minutes attached. Finance Committee minutes from 3/10/25, there's no minutes attached.
No minutes attached.
Provide departmental updates. There is no department heads in. So we move on to unfinished business. Number 1, loan renewal for the
The airport of-
SAF static display.
The Airport Advisory Board has approved to renew this display, and I'm seeking approval from the Board of Commissioners.
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Okay, we move on to new business, payment of bills.
I've examined all claims presented and recommend payment of the following, and that the county clerk be directed to issue orders on the county treasurer to the claimants for the amounts allowed. Grand total of bills, $374,058.75. Commissioner expenses, $2,431.01.
Okay, can I get a motion to accept the bills?
I'll move that we accept the bills in the sum of $374,058.75 and commissioner expenses of $2,431.01.
Okay, can I get a second?
Support.
Okay, roll call vote.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Vankenhoven?
Yes.
Jensen?
Yes.
And Melner?
Yes. Okay. On to number 2, airport manager.
Commissioner Vangenhoven, can you take this agenda item, as I had to leave the advisory board to go to finance meeting? Thank
Yep.
you. I missed this.
Yep, we, at the Airport Advisory Board meeting yesterday, the hiring committee made a recommendation, I'm allowed to say her name, right?
Yep.
Yep, to hire Caitlin Bierman as our new airport manager, and that's brought forward to the Board of Commissioners for extending employment to her.
And the recommended starting wage from the hiring committee was $75,000.
75?
Caitlin comes to us with approximately 20 years of experience in the aviation industry. She's originally from Escanaba, looking to relocate here from Alaska.
Okay. Do we need a motion?
I'll move that we extend the offer for employment to Caitlin Bierman as our airport manager.
Can I get a support?
Support.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I would like to say that I appreciate having received all the applications so that I could actually read through and review them. I do appreciate having the opportunity to do that, even though I didn't serve on the Airport Advisory Board. But I felt comfortable having reviewed the applications, and it just was, for me, it was a nice process, so, thank you.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Number 3, FOIA appeal, number 25-18, fees.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I am going to recuse myself, declare a conflict of interest, and I will not participate in this conversation.
Okay, who wants to open it up?
I guess I can start a discussion because I just have questions. And Ashley, this would be for you as FOIA coordinator. The questions I have are, how does the county define a burden? So we, in FOIA, when you're going to charge a fee, we have to, it's the preponderance of the burden has to be described by the public body. So how do we, as a county, describe a burden?
Typically, the only fees that we've assessed is based off of the number of emails that is captured by the search results. It is a discretionary amount. I've been leaning towards like 200 emails, anything above that. And I use 30 seconds an email as my factor.
30 seconds per email
Per
to
email.
have to review. And in the review, this question goes to possibly helping to make a process more efficient in the future. So it's an answer for this, but also potentially in the future. What exactly are you, when you search through the email, what are you looking for in the email to know whether or not you have to take an action on it?
When I'm looking at each individual email, well, I
Yeah.
have to review it. That's part of the 30 seconds.
Right, that's what I'm saying. What are you looking for?
Any type of redactions that are necessary in the email.
Right, like what? That's,
Well, part of the act. So whatever the exemptions are, if it's privacy information, if it's confidential, attorney-client confidentiality, it's all listed and, I can't name, I think there's like 13 of them.
right, okay, so I guess what I'm getting at is, would it help in the future to have our employees, for instance, they shouldn't be adding information in an email like a social security number. That should never be in an email, right? So we shouldn't ever have to even look for that sort of thing. And if it was in an email, it could be marked as, the email could be marked as sensitive so that when the search is being done, that doesn't end up in your pile that you then have to look through and say, oh, now I have to discard this thing. You know, we have policies in place, would put policies in place that would help our employees to not generate public records that are sensitive. Does that make sense? I mean, obviously, we're gonna have
For
some.
Social Security, I can understand that, but also, maybe their personal cell phone that, you know, hey, you can get a hold of me, this is my cell phone if they're not gonna be in their office. Or they said, you know, I'm sick today. That's personal information too, that I would
Gotcha.
have to look for. So there's so many different ones that I don't know what two employees may be talking about. It could be a supervisor and a subordinate. I don't know until I open up the email and start reviewing it.
Okay. And then the next question is the 34 minutes, which was, I think that was an actual, so that's done, correct? Okay.
That would have been like the search review, or the search for it.
And my question is 34 minutes to search for documents a burden?
But isn't it a cumulative of all of it, not just one? You're doing one, like you're itemizing it as, is this a burden? And then the next step, is this a burden? I thought it was the review of the whole process of the FOIA.
No, the labor cost to locate is separate from the labor cost to do the redactions and the review. Those are separate items.
Okay.
So so the labor cost to locate, which was 30, I thought it was 34 minutes, but I thought it was 34, but maybe it's, oh, yeah, no, it is, it's 34 minutes, yeah. So 34 minutes to me doesn't seem like a burden, you know, so that was a concern that I had, and I didn't think that we should be charging for 34 minutes to just search for the material and compile the material for you, to then have to go through. And then also under the labor cost to locate, it is required by FOIA that when you do charge, that you have to specify why that's a burden. And you did on your section, which is the estimate, that you haven't done that part yet.
Right.
But on the labor to locate, or labor cost to locate, there's no description, and that's required. So that has to be specified. And then, my last question, let me make sure I've got it here. Actually, those are all my questions. So, and what I came up with when I estimated your, from your calculation, when I look at 648 minutes, and I use your 30 seconds per email, that equates to 1,296 emails. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Okay.
Can we get a motion?
Yeah, and in this case, I would make a motion to, and I need to find the language.
Ms. Young, regarding the fees, this is what we typically charge everybody, correct?
Right, I have not changed any process of the FOIA fees.
Okay.
Oh,
On
there
the
was.
calculating.
There was one other question I had. This was for, I think it was 4 different emails. Let me see what it was. It looks like it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different email correspondence groupings, right?
Groupings for, yep.
Yeah, so if these had been turned in individually, because I don't think that we charge for every FOIA request, it's just when it is a burden.
It becomes a burden.
And so this burden is, in your definition, it's a burden because it's more than 200 emails.
That's the line I've been using.
Okay.
Yeah, so the first grouping encompassed 399 emails. There was even one grouping where it was 715 emails.
Okay,
Because
so.
it's for such a period of time,
Yeah.
there's no cue, like, to narrow it down. You know, usually you're looking for a certain subject matter, and we can use key terms to narrow down. It was just May 2024 until present
Gotcha.
for various employees.
Yeah, and so one of the things that I read was that has me, I guess, concerned, and that's why I'm asking these questions, is the burden has to be, typically what you're charging for is when you have to, work after hours, or you have to hire someone to actually do the redactions because there's nobody available to do it, so you're paying, you're paying a consult, or, an extra fee. It's typically because it's impacting your ability to do your job, and so you have to charge extra to make this actually happen. And so I understand that part of it. But I'm not exactly sure if these requests had been individual requests, would they have still been charged?
A few of them would be, yes.
But not all of them.
Correct.
Okay. And then lastly, I guess it's the cost. So if you're redacting just basic information, phone numbers, you're looking for addresses, I mean, this is something that someone that is not paid at your level could easily accomplish.
Well, there's also, part of this is our attorney.
Right, I think that there's 2 of them on the list that would require more, I guess, more knowledge in FOIA. But one of the things that I asked earlier was like, what are you looking for? And it's just, personal phone numbers, whether someone's on vacation or not. So FOIA requires that the hourly rate that you charge is the lowest paid position that could do the work. And in my opinion, we have folks who could do that work that are paid a lot less than you're paid to do that work.
So those were examples. I said all the exemptions under the FOIA Act.
Right.
And I just gave some examples. Those are not just specifically what I'm looking for. And I guess, could you tell me whom would be doing the redactions at this nature?
Well, I think anybody that you wanted to train could do these redactions. That's what, I think what I'm trying to get at is there are redactions that are really quite simple for anyone to do. Redactions are, take your cursor and go woo and hit the button. It's a very simple process. It's knowing what to redact.
Correct.
And there's some things that I think you have to have a higher level of knowledge to know what to redact. But a person's phone number, personal phone number, or, some of the examples you gave are really quite simple. And I think that anyone that we wanted to train could do that so that we could then offer a FOIA fee that is a lot less reduced to our public than the rate that it costs for you to do that work.
So, our staffing, whom would you suggest that I would train? Somebody outside of the administrative department? Pull
I don't
from a
know.
different department?
I'm not specifying an individual. I'm just saying FOIA requires that we
Right.
charge based on the lowest cost, whether that person does the work or not.
But it's the
That's the
capable
important
person
part.
that's capable.
I mean, I assume that most of our
So-
staff is capable of redacting.
I know, but looking at our job descriptions in the administrative, I don't know what's in those emails. Could they have security plans in them? Because I have, one of them right now is between Bob and I, Mr. Van Sadler and I, from May of 2024 to present. I don't know what's in those emails. So then I'm supposed to forward them to a staff member that may not have the clearance to look at them, but they are, in your words, capable of redacting phone numbers. And then what happens then? So this is just a process that the county has always used since, I think, 2015, when all these policies came in place. I think there was a lot of background information of why the county has decided to go in this way. If the commission wants to change that, where I train in an individual and send them out, we can change that process.
I guess,
Commissioner Johnson has a question.
Yeah, when we go to what is capable, I would agree with Ms. Young that because of the security clearances, there's really only two people that are actually capable of being our FOIA coordinator. And as this board, we've designated Ms. Young as the FOIA coordinator. The other person is our IT director. Those are pretty much the only two people I would trust with airport security clearance because, they're already trusted.
I was going to go one question further. Without actually opening that email, just because of, if you look between two individuals, and it doesn't matter which two, how would you know that that email initially would contain sensitive information without looking at it? So unless there's a method to be able to say, yes, there's sensitive information, there's no way to know. So if it's, and that's why I'm curious, because I understand the lesser on the fee, but if it's one of those that you say, okay, you're going to screen all these, but yet it's information that they're not necessarily authorized to be able to see,
Okay,
then that
so
would
let's-
have to go
let's-
back to the other. I'm
let's
just
just-
curious how we could split that.
Let's not assume that it's airport related.
I
Okay, so
was saying
something
in
else.
general. Yep, in
Yeah,
general.
so I am not insinuating that, that there's sensitive information in everything and that, only one person can be. I'm saying that redacting the information is not, in this particular case, there may be very sensitive information, but there may not be in other cases. And the FOIA requires that it's the lowest paid employee who can do the task. In this particular case, maybe it's not. But I don't want us to assume that we're going to charge $80 an hour, $81.68 an hour for a FOIA request for emails to the public on a regular basis. That just seems really high to me, really high. I've asked for FOIAs in the past where I've gotten similar information and similar amounts, similar volumes of email, and the cost was 50% of this. So, and that was only a few years ago. So the cost is quite a bit more than what it was.
And you had requested that you did not have the sufficient funds to pay that cost, so then the administrator reduced that cost. But your initial bill was, I read the letter.
Yeah, it was $475.
I never received any notice. I received an appeal on fees, which then brings it to the Board of Commissioners.
Okay, so would you have reduced it?
I may have reviewed it, and I may have, may not have, I don't know. I mean, we're already at this point. I'm not gonna state that I
You don't want to
would've.
give us any advice on what
It
you may
depends
have done?
on, it depends on the subject matter. I don't know. I would have to go through, because once I start making exceptions, then it has to be a solid line, because I would have to make exceptions to every citizen in Delta County. So I couldn't be discretionary, wishy-washy about it. So I would have to think it out. I haven't thought this out to give an answer.
Okay. So I would make a motion that we repeal in part the fee, because I do not think that it is appropriate for us to be charging for 34 minutes to locate the emails. And so I would repeal in part. And I would say that I would say that our cost to redact these emails is just, it's too high. And so I would have probably, had I had had this person asked you for a consideration instead of just appealing, I do believe you probably would have given consideration. And in that case, I don't know for sure, but it's been given to me in the past, so I'm going to assume that there would be consideration, and I would half the cost. So I would say that the location would be at 0, and the redacting of the material would be at 50% of what was listed.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Hearing none? The motion dies.
I would like some clarification. Ms. Williams, what would your bottom number be then for the math? Because
It would be 400 and whatever half of that is, $437 and some odd
For the
cents, which is
total?
about what I paid.
Okay.
Or it was about what I was charged. So I just look at, the history, and I look at the sort of a standard cost of FOIA requests. I looked, across Michigan, like what's an average cost for a large volume, and this was just really high, so.
Then my other question is, you mentioned the burden of, or you mentioned the burden wasn't really a burden at 34 minutes. What would be your line for a burden?
So in FOIA, case law has been an hour.
Okay.
That's really what a lot of case law references is, like, once you get over about an hour, that becomes a burden. So that's why the 34 minutes, to me,
Okay.
was just not,
Okay.
it wasn't an acceptable burden.
Okay.
It really isn't, 34 minutes out of a person's 8-hour shift is not considered, in FOIA, based on case law, is just not considered a burden.
Sure.
Unless it's like, you can show that it happens every day, consistently, and then it starts to pile up.
Well, in my line of work, we bill for anything after 8 minutes, so.
Well,
It was, so I was looking at burden, and I was going, okay, 34 minutes, well, that's more than 8 minutes.
Yeah, well, no, the case law is an hour.
Okay.
So and correct me, I think in here it has does the 15-minute increments that it talks about in here, is that also in the collection? Or is that only pertain to when they're actually being, like in this case, screened?
Well, it's two separate activities.
Yep.
That's why it's separated in the fee schedule too, and that's purposeful,
Right.
right? The legislature, I think when they write the law, there's individual tasks associated with FOIA. And so like, for instance, we could think about someone who has to like go back to old microfiche, right?
Very much so.
That burden might be different than
Digital.
pulling emails from a server, The activity of doing a search and pulling a list of emails and then forwarding those on, and that takes 34 minutes, to me, isn't a burden. And when you look at the case law, it's clearly showing that's not a burden, But what becomes a burden is when it's very impactful to one's position, like having to, leave their desk, go down into a, basement, look up old microfiche, not being at their desk any longer or being able to answer the phone or.
Right.
That is different.
So the total time was, how many hours?
Well,
just didn't know off
her
the top of
section
my
is
head.
648 minutes.
Right. I
And,
just didn't pull
and
up the calculator
the
to look.
locating was 34 minutes.
Right, I was talking in reference to this for our administrator, it was 648.
Minutes, yeah. Which is 10.8 hours.
Yeah, that's still pretty substantial amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's, that's.
I'm not arguing
no,
the
no, I mean,
time,
that's.
I'm arguing the
that's-
cost.
yeah, Well, and,
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at it based on even job-wise, when we talked about it being a burden, that's actually a whole workday.
I
And
get
that's
that.
Or if it's after hours, when that's being done because of duties during the day, I mean, I don't see where that wouldn't necessarily fall into that category. I mean, by the own description, if it's really taking into that. Now, if we've used the basis of 200, how many out of those chains, I guess, based on, what was it, 5 different groupings, I believe? Is that what it was?
Yeah, it's 5 different email groupings
Is there-
from May 2024 to present.
Yep. You tracking that. So out of those, I remember you mentioned 2 of them that were over that $200 threshold. How many are under that 200,000, or that 200 email threshold?
3 of them.
3 of them. Okay. If it's normally under that threshold, we don't charge, correct?
Right,
Typically?
Typically.
yeah. I mean, I'd be
I mean, I
fine with
haven't-
having it and removing the cost to locate. It seems reasonable to me, but I'm just not comfortable with the way it is currently.
I guess, I don't know the cost difference with what those ones we typically don't charge. You said there's 3 of them that are less than 200. What are, I'm sorry.
Well, then you're going to have somebody that comes in and they know this 200 threshold and they want 10,000 emails. They're going to give you that many FOIAs for 199. People will get around it then.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
that's the way it works.
And I use 200 just because of the fact that I don't want to charge the public for, I guess, using that waiver clause. That is by way of saying, because even at, 200, 200 emails, I mean, that's still an hour and a half. So that's just a half an hour. That's why I put a $200 or 200 email threshold. I see that now in the future, we'll probably get emails between this person and this person for this month, and then we'll just get 12 of those.
Yeah, and that
That's what's
spreads out the, I take a little bit of offense to what you said, Nancy, just a little bit as a person who seeks FOIA, because it's the only way that the public has to engage with its government. I mean, this is one of only 2 tools that we have available to us in order to do that, right? So if we spread out the request, we're still looking for the same amount of information, but we spread that out over 3 months or 4 months or whatever it might
You have to
be.
spread it out. You could submit all these at the same time, or one each day. So,
Well,
there's a timeline, and
but you-
you're crunching. It's taken away a lot of valuable time from our administrator to do this. She's got a lot of responsibility. So, it's a burden. It is a burden.
So should the commission, or maybe the county, look at appointing somebody else? Looking at an attorney? These FOIA's requests have recently have been more in a sensitive nature. Typically, we usually receive police reports, building permits. I'm trying to think of ones, maybe a transaction listing and such. And these are just emails between this employee and that employee for this timeline. Maybe
Is
we
it
look at-
specific around the airport?
Nope, I received emails between Administrator Young, Commissioner Wagenhoven, emails between Mr. Ransadler and Commissioner Wagenhoven, emails between Prosecutor Wickman and Commissioner Wagenhoven. And
Oh,
emails
yeah, no,
like
I know what
but
this
these are
is,
the
yeah.
general.
I thought you were saying there are other requests, not just
Oh,
this
I-
one that you were, I see what you have for this
Well,
request. I
the-
thought you were referencing a
the
different
last-
request.
The last one that we just received an appeal with, they were just general like this too.
But it was the same individual, right?
It was the same individual, but
Okay.
I've received others throughout the past year and a half that have just been between 2 employees or public officials and whatnot, and just based on a timeline. No specific, like, I'm looking for things related to, I don't know.
Right, right.
I don't
And
know
I
what
understand about
subject.
the information, obviously, but it's been, I mean, from my experience, when I've asked for information, it's specific in nature. It's not like, casting a net, in mass. And I mean, I know you can do that, but if I'm looking for something specific, I would state that, knowing that I would have either pay a good faith fee up front. I know some places require a deposit. I guess that, I look at that part for me, if I'm looking for something specific, that's what I'm gonna ask for. I mean, to me, that lessens my personal burden, or the potential for that, or what my cost would be.
Yeah.
And just a little bit more information, like for this request in particular, with the 1,296, I have 15 days. That's 5 days with, and then a 10-day extension. And I have to
Actually-
have this task completed.
Yeah, actually, when you're working toward it, you have more flexibility than that. You just have to respond, but you can take the time necessary to do the work.
Again, then it goes into where it's a gray area. What is timely then?
Right, timely.
How do you define, and it's hard to define it.
Yeah, I mean, FOIA is very clear, and there is plenty of case law that states, once you start the process, you have the time necessary to do the task. You are not bound by 10 days. You can take the time necessary to do the job. So it isn't set in stone like you have to have this information to this person in this amount of time. You have to start the process. I mean, I have FOIAs that have gone out for 2 years.
I know
And I'm
you-
still waiting for them to come back. And
Which is
you know
shocking
what?
to me, because
And they
we
come back.
typically-
They eventually
we don't do
do.
that.
Well, because the federal government moves a lot slower than we do. So,
Well, yeah, I just stay up, late and get them done
and,
within that 15.
and that's great. That's
15
great. I appreciate that. I'm sure others appreciate it too,
But-
so.
So one of the questions, we know there's 3 groups that are under the threshold that you normally charge. How many is that in each of those? So there was 3 different groups. Do you know what those
Got me on
are?
that one. I did not total those up in that way.
I mean, I can even total it.
182.
So there's So of the other three
The
individuals.
three groups were, the three that were under 200 was 182 emails.
So 182.
Total. Total of the three.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then that comes out to 1,044.
44,
What?
Emails, because it was 1,296
It
total
was, yeah,
originally, correct?
1,296
And
was the
then
total.
you had three groups
Oh, okay, yep.
in the requested amount that only total 182. To me, that would make a whole lot more sense in this if that's what our threshold normally is for those that we wouldn't charge, that we would look at reducing it by that amount. Now, we'd have to figure it out here real quick again.
522 would be the amount of time.
Oh.
522 minutes.
557.
557?
Because it would be 1,000, what was the total number?
1,000.
Here, I can, let me get a calculator.
Oh, 44.
Yeah, so
Yep.
it's 522.
Let's see, it's 522. And what's in our rate here? I don't have your worksheet.
8168, so 20.42 per quarter hour.
I have, if we remove the three topics, so it'd been topic 2, 3, and 4, it would be 1,114 emails, with 30 seconds an email was 557. Divide by 15-minute increments is 37.13, 37 times, I gotta find the rate. 8168, is that what you said, Commissioner, too?
That's what you have in here.
Yeah, okay. So it'd been,
20.42 per quarter hour.
$755.54. Want to verify my calculation?
You said
On the
seven.
fly, $755.54.
Yeah, and
Total
I,
now?
that, yeah, hold on. Can you say it again real quick?
She said,
The dollar amount?
Yeah.
Okay, $755.54.
Yeah. So
And it-
just to note, if we were to hire someone to do the work, the maximum amount that we can charge is $74.88 per hour. Because it can only be 6 times the minimum hourly wage for the state of Michigan, which is $12.48. So we would be charging less money to have someone else do the work. So that's a strange way to look at that, yeah. So,
I guess that's one of those, I wouldn't be opposed if it was one where we've established previously as precedent for that 200 email threshold. If it's under that, we haven't charged. And then, of course, the lack of burden in the collection, in this case being digital, not included, based on the threshold that we'd already set of that 200. To me, that seems logical in this case not to include those.
is that your
Three
motion?
groupings. It would be to omit the 182 emails out of that chain as far as fee-wise goes, as well as the collection from the digital collection. And that would bring a total of $755.54.
And again, this is an estimate, so actual hours will be charged.
Correct.
So this is what we base it off of. Now, let's just say, for example, not to make this more complicated, but I'm going through and the email is 1,000 pages because there's a huge attachment into it. You know, it could increase, my estimate could be wrong and my actual is going to be higher.
And your actual could be a lot lower too.
And my actual could be a lot lower because maybe it's one email, maybe 3 lines,
Right.
you know? And
Might
how I
take
came
5
up with-
seconds versus 30 seconds or a minute, you know?
Right,
Yeah.
and how I came up with 30 seconds, originally, I didn't know what to charge. The first time that I received a bulk amount of emails, I was like, and so I did like a few of them, and it was a minute, but there was a lot of attachments involved and such. And when I sent out my first bill, the individual responded back, it was somebody, was part of an organization that FOIAs us a lot. Anyways, they said, well, a minute is a lot. You know, typically what I see is 30 seconds. And so that's why we reduced it down to 30 seconds. That made sense. I was new, so that was probably why there was a lot of attachments. So, you know, I was receptive to that individual and saying, okay, you know, you're part of this organization. I know you FOIA across the state of Michigan. You know, so I did reduce down to 30 seconds, but I just wanted to say, like, this is just an estimate. My
Yeah.
actual could be less.
Well, the estimate
or it
is
could
for,
be higher.
the estimate is for you to be able to collect a down payment to actually
Correct.
prove, or not, prove's not the right word, to commit the requester to pay for the information. So that's what the estimate is for, and it's, you know, it's important to come up with an estimate that seems reasonable. And so hopefully the actual wouldn't be this crazy amount, but you do need to, if it starts to look like it's climbing, you do have to let the requester know. So they, you know, you don't go through and do all the work and then say, oh, hey, by the way, you owe me another $500, you know?
Right.
It doesn't work that way either, so, yeah.
Okay, how much was the original then?
I was just
The amount?
meaning, like, putting a threshold of 200 emails, we won't charge anything. It's just that what is in that $200, or I guess it would be putting a threshold of 200 emails for estimates, but, you know, I just didn't want us to say, if it's under 200 emails, no matter how much time it takes, we're not gonna charge.
Well, that's why I asked, what do you, how do
that's
you
what I
define a
start.
burden?
That's where I start is 200, but like I said, what if I come across where maybe it's a FOIA request that's under 200, but the emails that is captured on there is a ton of documents.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing what ifs out there. Not saying that it happens, but just so
Okay.
that we're thinking.
And I understand with attachments, I mean, that's something, again, that you can see if there's an attachment, even before you open it. So, I mean, now, how big?
You would have an idea.
Yeah, you would,
If
you
there's
would at
one
least
or
know
10 or
something's there,
whatever, yeah.
right? And just based on file size, will give you a pretty good idea if it's a sentence or two or multiple pages.
Right. John, I'm getting your calculation here real quick. I'm trying to, 7 is
Or maybe we just
to-
look at like
2 to 1.
hours that it would take.
$122.52 is the difference between the original and his motion.
And that's the estimate, correct?
Somebody want to make a motion on that?
I thought that's what he did.
Yeah.
You did? Can I get a second?
I'll support it. I don't agree with it,
All in
but,
favor?
Aye.
okay, hold on. Okay.
Oh,
Usually we do
No, you want
additional
to-
discussion, but that's okay. I just want to.
I mean, I thought we've had,
No, it's, yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you, we have. If you want to do a vote, I want to make sure that I put a comment in the record, so that's all I was going to suggest during the discussion.
do we have a roll call vote?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams,
No, and I want to make sure that my comment goes in the record, because I believe that the labor cost per hour is too high.
Commissioner Mulner,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
yes.
I have to say Commissioner Vangenhoven declared his conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Okay, motion passed. We will move on to number 4. Request to donate sick leave.
Administration is seeking approval to open up donation of sick time to a particular county employee and allowing other county employees to donate.
So moved.
Yeah, support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passed. General public comment. Any general public comment? Any general public comment?
I also
Anything
checked
on-
remote, nothing. Nope.
Nothing?
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner comments.
Yeah, so if I'm reading this right, it looks like we're kind of edging towards making a change to our FOIA policy. We seem to have some disagreements, and I think our FOIA policy is going to need to be looked at a little bit more.
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, our FOIA policy says that the chairman is our FOIA coordinator, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, no, and I'm just saying, like,
Or designee,
the
which
threshold,
I'm
the amount of
sure
time we're spending, the
Oh.
fees we're charging, like, none of this was done, in my opinion, none of it was done maliciously. It was just, this is what was done in the past.
Absolutely.
And we're moving forward with it. However, unfortunately, this case is bringing up where it is, where we're going, okay, there are some discrepancies, or there are some areas where maybe we're a little heavy with the fees, or maybe we're not exactly going about it the most humane way, I guess. I mean, it's right now it's the right way, but is it the most humane way? Well, maybe not. So yeah, I'd like to explore this a little bit further and go into our FOIA policy more.
I would enjoy doing that work, so, yeah.
I agree.
And that's all.
Commissioner Williams.
I would just like to say that the latest edition of the MAC, I don't know what you call this little. Is that the monthly magazine?
Yeah.
I don't know what it's called. So there's a cover story, which is the Open Meetings Act, the dangers of delegation. And I would have to say that this is incredibly important information for all of us to review. It is a new case law. And I think that it is important for us to understand when we delegate to our subcommittees, we need to be really clear as to whether they are advisory committees or whether they are decision-making committees. And I think we have right now some ambiguity in our committees where they think they're advisory, but they're actually making decisions. And then when those decisions come to us, we think we're making the decision, but this committee's already done it. And so I think it's important to read it. I think it's good information, and it's brand-new case law as of December of 2024. So I think it's worth a read.
Commissioner Kelly.
I would just like to remind the public that the opioid task force is still accepting RFPs for opioid settlement funds. The deadline is March 31st. If any organization would like to apply for those funds, they can do so on our website. Thank you.
Commissioner Jensen.
And I know Commissioner Johnson has down the hall here, I'll make this quick. Again, the Citizen Planner course is coming up. There's a grant with QPAD that lowers the price on that for attendees by half. If you're even remotely interested in planning and zoning, I highly recommend you look in and participate in that course.
Administrator Young.
No comment.
Myself, I was in Washington DC for a NACO conference, and I brought back a lot of information. Everything that what I went through, there was a lot of good information, so they had a lot of packets and stuff, so I just brought back a lot of policies that if people want to, the commissioners want to take a look at it, I do have them here. So that's it for me.
Okay.
Meeting schedule, meeting in a whole on 3/13 at 1 o'clock here at the Service Center. The next Board of Commissioners meeting is 4/1/25, 5:15, right here at the Service Center. The next one would be 4/15/25 at 5:15, right at the Service Center. 30-day notices of appointments, there is none.
Veterans
The
Affairs.
Veteran Affairs Committee is doing that.
We did that last meeting.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
I
we can
need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll